And now I would like to share with you a little bit about the Kaira, the Seder Plate. And these are some of the reminders that we use about all the different stages of the Seder. So here's a sample of our Seder plate. And we begin on the top right side with the oftentimes called the Shank Bone, which would be a bone from the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb. And here you actually see this is a chicken neck, a roasted chicken neck. In my circles, we always roasted chicken neck because we don't want anyone to think we actually did a Paschal lamb, a sacrificial lamb, actually brought a korban, a sacrifice when we don't have the temple right now. So we use a chicken neck instead. But the idea of the Korban Pesach, the Paschal lamb, is again a reminder for the original Paschal lamb. That lamb was brought home and tied to the bedpost for a few days so we could watch it and make sure it's going to be strong and healthy and not going to have any health problems. Then we would be able to check that we bring it from outside so that as we bring it home, people could ask, what are we planning to do? And we would tell the Egyptians that we are planning to roast this lamb. This is one of the idols of Egypt, that we're planning to roast this lamb, slaughter it, roast it, and eat it as a part of the sacrifices to our God. And so it was specifically roasted outside. It was cleaned and gutted and roasted outside where the aroma could waft through the neighborhood and remind everybody what we're doing. And nowadays, we don't have the Korban Pesach. We don't have the temple currently today. Maybe by evening we will. And the times when we did have the temple in Jerusalem, so we'd all gather together and do the sacrificial lamb on the night of the 14th of Nisan, the afternoon, the day in the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, and when preparations then we'd take it home, and that evening on the 15th of Nisan, we would begin our Seder. And you wanted to be careful to gather people to your Seder that will help finish the lamb. Before you go to sacrifice the lamb at the temple, we would bring together a group of people. We would know exactly how many people are going to be attending, and that this Korban Pesach will be representative of that group of people specifically. We want to make sure that we eat the entire lamb. Nothing can be left over till morning, and all has to be consumed. And so you want to keep in mind the older folks that eat little and the children who eat little, so that we can make sure that we actually complete the entire lamb before morning comes. And of course, you don't want to have so few people that it's not able to finish it, but not so many people that everyone doesn't get a sufficient amount. Everyone should eat like an egg size worth of the Paschal lamb. And it should be the last thing we eat. It should be the last thing we eat so we have the taste lingers in our mouth. Nowadays, since we're not doing at this moment the Korban Pesach, instead of having the roasted lamb at the end of the meal, when we're fully satiated, we're doing this because of the mitzvah of the Korban Pesach, not because we're hungry. And so it's the last thing we eat. Since we don't have the Korban Pesach these days without the temple, we eat the Afikoman. Afikoman means dessert. We have that instead. And again, that will be the last thing that we eat. To the left side of the kaira, we have a beitza, an egg, a hard-boiled egg. And this is also a reminder that during the time of when the temple stood, every Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, Passover, Shavuos, all the Jewish holidays, biblical holidays, we would have a specific sacrifice, a korban that's called a korban chagiga. It's the holiday sacrifice in honor of the holiday itself. So Passover, we also have a korban chagiga. In addition to that, we have the korban Pesach. So the top right and left are reminding us of the two karbonos, sacrifices that we would bring in the temple in honor of the holiday. To the bottom right, we have the Charosis. And the Charosis is a mixture of apples and pears and walnuts and some wine. Actually very sweet tasting, which is interesting because it's to remind us of the mortar that's used for the bricks. So we're reminded of the mortar and the slavery, and at the same time we have the sweet taste. And the whole night is like this, where we have the bitterness of slavery, but the sweetness of freedom, the feeling of being slaves, the feeling of being royalty, kings and queens, and the princes and princesses. We go back and forth the whole night between those two concepts. On the bottom left side, we have a spring vegetable. This could be a kartoffel, a potato, or a tzibula, an onion, or even parsley. But an idea of a spring vegetable that reminds us that God took us out of Egypt in the month of the spring. not in the heat of the summer or the cold of the winter or the chill of the fall, but in the wonderful time of springtime. Um, and so this is a reminder. We dip the spring vegetable in salt water, which reminds us of the tears of the Jewish people. So again, we have the reminder of the good times, and we have the reminder of the salt water, of the tears of the time of slavery. An additional note, I've mentioned one of the other videos as well, but we have a lunar calendar. And every couple of years, we have to readjust our Hebrew calendar so that Passover will always come in the month of the spring. Unlike Muslim holidays, Lahavdil, who they also follow a lunar calendar, but their holidays move around the seasons. And then, of course, there's the solar calendar, which is only about the seasons. We follow a lunar calendar and we adjust to the solar calendar because Passover has to come in the month of the spring. In the middle, we have maror and chazeres. The maror and chazeres is made up of a horseradish, bitter horseradish, freshly peeled and freshly ground right before the holiday, and as well the romaine lettuce. Both of those are considered bitter vegetables, and we typically use a combination of the two of them together. The first one is for the maror, the stage in the Seder where we make a blessing on the maror to remember the bitter times of Egypt, and at that time, how much more so we can, if we appreciate the depth of the severity of the pain, we can rejoice even greater in the freedom and the holiday. So we remember the maror, the bitter times, and we eat that by itself. We want to eat at least a kazayas again to make sure that we've eaten a sufficient amount. The chazeres is used when we eat the matzah and the maror together in commemoration of what Hillel used to say, where he believed that you should eat the matzah and the maror and the korban pesach, the sacrificial lamb, all as a sandwich together. And so we eat those combined. And of course, the salt water is sitting nearby to the Seder plate. And of course, we have our cup of wine sitting by as well. And we alternate between uncovering the matzahs and talking about the slavery and the challenging times, and covering the matzahs and focusing on the holiday, rejoicing parts of these things. And the parts of our Seder plate help us to remind us and of the different details and to arouse the curiosity of the children, and as we teach them all about the holiday as well. So happy holidays, and kosher and freilich and Pesach. Wish you all the best.